Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the United Kitchens. I am Ricki Mckenna, certified nutritionist for over 20 years, and this is my kitchen. This is Ricki's Kitchen. And we are on USA Global TV and radio, so welcome wherever you are. And this morning, or actually it's afternoon here, we're going to work from my book, which is Yes, You Can, Eat Well and Eat Right. And we're going to do a recipe for a chicken today. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it in a minute, but first I'd like to let you know a little bit about me. If you haven't been here before to Ricki's Kitchen or to USA Global TV's United Kitchens. We started out with the idea that people like to eat. All over the world, one thing that unites us is food. So one of the things that we do here is use recipes from all over the world when possible. And we also have some guest chefs, which we will continue to do later on. And today, what I'd like you to understand is, as a nutritionist and chef, what I do is help people understand what food is and what it does for them, and how food can make an entire difference in how you feel and how you perform. So with that, the reason that I wrote the book, Yes, You Can, Eat Well and Eat Right, is because there are lots of foods that we eat that don't serve us well, that don't serve our health, that don't serve to keep our energy up and to keep our immune system boosted. So one of the premises in the book is eat well and eat right for your type, for your body, for your emotional body, and for your brain. So food is the key to keeping you healthy, well, and alive and vibrant. So with that, we'll get on. And if you have the book, several people do now have the book. It is on Amazon, and you can purchase it there. We're going to use one of the recipes that I have on page 138. Much of the book is devoted to vegetables and fruit, but I do have the good old chicken, which is probably, I believe it is the most utilized meat source of food all around the world. People eat more chicken than any other kind of meat. So today we're going to take my organic chicken, and I'm using just legs and thighs for this recipe. You can use a whole chicken if you like, but it's a lot easier to poach just the legs and thighs. So that's what we're using. And again, we're on page, if you have the book, it's on page 138. And so what I've done is I've marinated the chicken overnight. And actually, I marinated it in one of the ingredients, well, two of the ingredients that we'll be using. One is white wine. I had some, I believe it was Pinot Grigio, that I poured over the chicken to help to marinate it. And I cut up, I've already sliced my onion, so that's already ready. So what I'm going to do is take my chicken, and we're going to put it in a very large pan, a deep pan with a cover. And you can see it here, it's a biggie. And I'm going to take my chicken piece by piece and make sure it actually, I did marinate the thighs with the skin on, but I think I'm going to remove that now from each piece. So let's move our pan over a little bit. There went a spice, excuse me. Okay, it's fine. It's time. At any rate, I'm going to take my little sharp knife, which I hope is sharp. No, it's not sharp enough. So, lesson number 1, sharp knives do matter. And so I'm going to sharpen this knife, and I'm alternating sides on a knife sharpener and basically cutting away from me. And I usually like to do this about 21 times, but since I'm not really counting, we'll just do it until I can feel the edge that it's sharp enough to really cut through chicken. Okay. And I'm going to give it a little rinse because we don't want little pieces of stainless steel in our food. Now, what I'm going to do is take my chicken and let's see, let me get this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. I'm skinning the chicken. There we go. That's much better. Leaving the chicken itself on, but just taking the skin off, only on the thighs. So we'll take each piece and carefully remove the chicken, and with that, a little bit of the fat. But you want some of the fat in the liquid as well. But I'm going to take some of this off. Okay, and I'm going to place my chicken open end down. I'm going to leave the skin on the legs. Well, just take a little bit of flap off there, which will help it to cook easier. And frankly, I prefer my chicken skins to be crispy, but they're not going to do that here. But still, we're going to put them all in. Let's get them in. Let's get the legs in, and then we'll finish up cutting the thighs. And here we go. There we go. Here we got another thigh. And what we're going to do is go fishing. Nope, it's out. Okay, we have 3 legs and 3 thighs, actually 4 legs and 3 thighs. And I'm not going to turn it on yet until we get everything in there. So we'll continue skinning the thighs, which you can almost sometimes pull off easily, but then again, they do it here. And so we're carefully cutting off the skin. You can buy them skinless and boneless, but I prefer it with the bone in. And somehow the butchers just seem to do the skin and the bones together. And I would prefer to have the bones in for flavor. Okay, so we're putting them in actually what was the skin side up into the pan. I'll bring it back in a second so you can see that. Here we go. And when you're be careful not to take the chicken flesh with you when you take the skin off. There we are. And we'll just put that to dispose of later. And so I'm going to take, here we go. I think you can see how I've got that in there. And we'll turn the other camera on shortly because what I want to do now is take my onions, which are cut. You can cut them thinly or thickly. And we're just going to put them all around the chicken. Just add them in there. That was 1 large onion. Well, medium to large size is fine. Whatever you prefer. And there we go. And now I'm going to take the wine and see how much I've got in there because I literally just poured it from the bottle and didn't measure. So I'm going to take about a cup of the liquid out and pour it around the chicken. And now I'm going to add a cup of fire roasted tomatoes. So we're poaching in, there's a variety of ways to poach a chicken. And one of the things I like about chicken actually is it's hard to poach something like a piece of flank steak, or especially you can do it with lamb, but the chicken is more conducive than any other meat, if you're going to use meat, to poaching. So this is absolutely perfect. The other thing I like to poach is fish. And you might use the same recipe with a bland fish such as cod or mackerel, something like that, that you can do as well. But this, we're going to take the fire roasted tomatoes along with our onions and a cup of the white wine. And I will explain as I go along what we're doing here. The reason for the fire roasted tomatoes, of course, is flavor. And when they're roasted like this, they do add a different flavor to the chicken. And we are going to use the juice as well. So by the time we get through distributing all this, and let's see, we can use our other camera so you can see what we've got here. And let's put this, and we'll work at the range. Here we go. And welcome to all of you wherever you are. What I've done is just taken the chicken, I'm putting it on high. And I'm going to take the rest of the juice and the onions and save them for a little bit later. Actually, no, I'm going to add the rest of the onions now. And then we're going to do a little variations on the theme so that you can see that if you have certain things around that you might want to add, that's perfectly wonderful. And actually, we haven't used any seasoning yet because of the fire roasted tomatoes. However, I am going to add about a tablespoon of granulated garlic. And we're just judging that here as it goes around. And you can see it's going to be quite well on top of the chicken. And then I'm also going to use some fresh oregano from my garden. And this is something that I grow out in the garden. You can see it here. I have the oregano leaves and they're dried, and I'm just going to crush them and spread them around. So far we've got granulated garlic, we've got fire roasted tomatoes and onions, and oops, that was it. Thought I had a little more of that. And now you can add either thyme or herb de Provence. And I happen to have my herb de Provence and my thyme, so I'm going to do a little bit of both. And this one, since the top is on, it's a brand new jar of organic spices and it doesn't want to come out. Okay, let's get that out there. Let's see. We'll use our handy little knife. There we go. And I just noticed something, that when I dropped the thyme, it cracked the jar. I don't think you can see it, so we're not going to use that. We'll just use our herb de Provence that I know is clean. And we'll sprinkle it all around, covering. And yes, this is going to give this an absolutely marvelous flavor. So we'll take care of this later. This is the reason when anything happens like this, I don't know if you can see the crack in the jar. So I am not going to use that, but I will carefully remove it and put it in another jar. And this is why, one of the reasons that I keep empty jars and relabel. Okay, so now we've got our chicken with all the goodies in there that is beginning to simmer. And what we want it to do is simmer, not boil. So I'm going to let it get up to where it's really starting to simmer, and you can see it in between the pieces. There we go. And yes, I will mix things up a little later. We'll turn it over. But right now, we're just going to let it start to cook for probably the next 15-20 minutes. And in the meantime, we're going to do some accompaniments. Ooh, let's see. Here I am, the techie. Ah, there we go. Okay. So, in the meantime, we're going to do a little cleanup on the cans and take this away. I do not like to put my raw chicken or raw meat on my wooden top. So, therefore, I use a silicone board. And I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup this morning. Unfortunately, this is all wine, but we can't drink it. So we'll just clean it up. And the other things that will go into the mix, we have a piece of celery, so I'm going to chop that up. And then one of my favorite vegetables. This looks a little celebratory. It is a leek, an organic leek, and I'll show you how. This is what happens when you try to clean it, to get into between all the leaves, to get all the dirt out. That wonderful soil, organic soil in which it's cooked. Now we've started to bubble a little bit, so I'm going to turn it down. And on my range, I'm going to turn it down to medium low to let it simmer. There we go, and I'm going to cover it. So when you choose your pan or to put it in, make sure it has a cover. You could use a Dutch oven if it's large enough. That would be fine as well. So we've got the herbs in there and the fresh tomatoes. And now for the accompaniments. And that's the easy part. So now we're going to have some fun. So I'm going to take some celery and give a little chop and put it in there with it, because I like the flavor of celery mixed in with some of the other things. And as I really promote intuitive cooking, I would suggest that if you like celery, please add it. If you don't like celery, don't. And if you find that you like another vegetable and you would prefer that, it's perfectly okay to do that. I'm going to take my celery. I'm going to put it aside right now because I'm not going to add it yet, because I wanted to show you what we're going to do with this leek. It looks like it's been through a celebration, but it's really wonderful. What I do when you clean a leek, it's very important to either peel it or slice it so that you can get to the dirty parts and get them out of there. Cut off the end, the root, and sometimes the top leaves are a little bit messy, so we're going to cut those off carefully by taking my sharp knife and just cutting around the white part, just a little bit. Don't press hard, but press hard enough so that you can take the top leaves that are messy off. There we go. And I think one more will work. But I do want the whole part of the white part that is clean. Most of your dirt in a leek will be in this part, in the top part. But I do want some of the greens, so we're going to cut just a little bit off the end here because this one's fine. And just trim them a little bit and then chop it up to add to the mix. So we're poaching in both onions and leeks. And let's see, I'm just going to chop it up separately here. All right. There, we'll take this out of the way. There we go. So now I've already checked to see how clean the leek is on the inside. And I'm not going to use the whole thing, but I am going to use parts of the green. So we'll cut those off. The dark green tops. And I'm also going to use a little bit of the white. So I'm just going to go hold on to that right now and chop into pieces. And I want to keep it in the circles because it looks pretty when it cooks. So I've got about maybe a quarter cup of the leeks, which I'm going to toss in there carefully. And add it around. And turn it up a little bit because it's just beginning to simmer. And I do want it to simmer. So now I have some leek that I can use in something else. And I'm going to take the dark green parts and do the same thing. Chop it up, just roughly. And it's fun working with the curls. It's okay. We'll get it. There we go. So we've got onions and leeks, and of course the leeks add a little different flavor than the onions to the poaching and to the chicken. So let's take that. And we will put, I'm going to take half of this actually, that's the green tops, and put it with my celery, because we'll cook that not quite as much as the other. And this is how you control the tenderness or the al dente portions of whatever you're using. And by the way, if you wanted to use fresh garlic in with the chicken, that's perfectly fine. I like the granulated garlic better than garlic powder. First of all, it's more substantial and it has a better flavor. And it really adds more flavor to the mix. So I'm going to take this now that I've got all the greens chopped up and add that to the mix. All right, we're simmering nicely. I'll show you that in just a second. So you can see how pretty that is while it cooks. Let's see. There we are. It's really lovely. And I think I'll just give it a little, there's our chicken, just to make sure nothing's sticking. And you can see that it is just barely simmering. So I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. It's really now on medium because it's so full. There's a lot of meat in there as well as the liquid, and we want everything to really poach beautifully and produce some nice tender poached chicken. So, and as accompaniments, you can do, as the book suggests, you can do green beans. You can use spinach, which you would certainly put in. If you wanted to add to the mix, you would add the spinach in about 6 or 7 minutes, raw spinach, before you're ready to eat, and just cover it and let it wilt into the chicken. Or the other thing that you can do, if you carefully remove the chicken pieces without the gravy or the juice, then you can take the spinach and put it in as a underneath to go underneath the chicken, as well as you can also do some pasta to go with it. But we're going to keep this nice and fresh and not use any pasta. Well, today what I've got are some gigantic Brussels sprouts. So we're going to prepare the Brussels sprouts to add to this about the last half hour that it's cooking. So the first thing I did, of course, was wash them. I'm going to trim the bottoms. And in trimming, there's a lot of different ways to cook Brussels sprouts. One of my favorite, of course, is to bake them or roast them with simply a little bit of olive oil and garlic and add them to whatever. I actually eat them all by themselves because they're absolutely delicious that way. And if anybody grew up as I did as a kid, where you had Brussels sprouts that were frozen and soggy, these come out much better when you do the fresh. And of course, you can control how much they are cooked, which is something that's good to do. I'm going to take these and toss them. And then I'm going to cut my Brussels sprouts in half. You can cut them in half or you can leave them whole. That is simply up to you. And this one seems to have a little company in there. Sometimes the organic vegetables have that. They've been invaded because they're not sprayed with pesticides and so forth. But these look pretty good. So we're going to trim just some of the tougher outside leaves. There we go. And get our sprouts ready to go in. And I'll just toss them back in here. And with all the seasoning that's already in there for the chicken, it isn't necessary to do anything more as far as seasoning with these. You might add a little salt into the bowl now and let them just get a wee bit of salt. But most of your vegetables from the earth already have sodium. And so I'm a real proponent of letting people add the salt that they want to a meal sometimes. Because sometimes what I find, especially in some restaurants and that produce commercial soups and vegetables, that they've oversalted. And that's not good. I love salt, but not overly so. So I'm taking my Brussels sprouts and I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of kosher salt on them. And some pepper. So we have both our main course and vegetables all together, just a little, maybe a half a teaspoon. And I'm going to turn this down a little. I'll show you how much it's boiling in a second. And I'm going to throw the leeks and the celery in there with that, so everything cooks together. Now the celery, because I happen to like it soft, the crispy will be the Brussels sprouts, because we're only going to put them in for about 20 minutes. So, do we have any questions or any comments from anyone out there? I'm hoping that we have a bunch of people out there who are learning how to do this, because this is fun. I also have something called my Italian blend. It's a blend of herbs and spices that could be used in place of just the oregano or the thyme. It's a combination of different spices. And it also has fennel. So that's the reason I did not use it with the chicken this time. And let's see what else. We've got our chicken cooking, and I'll give you a good visual here. I'm not going to let the water go in there. There we go. Let's see how well that's doing. It's going to make a lovely dinner. And actually, I might put it over pasta. You could use something like angel hair or some other, like even a fettuccine type pasta. But this, I think, is going to be lovely over. If you wanted to make it a little more healthy, I would put it over the spinach. I'm going to turn everything over now. You can see what's in here. And you can see that it's simmering nicely. And remember, you do want chicken to be thoroughly cooked. So we'll take that. Whoop-de-doo. Turning everything over kind of puts a lot of the vegetables that were on top on the bottom now, so everything will be thoroughly cooked. However, I will take a spoon and let's take some of this wonderful mixture and put it on top of each piece. So the flavors go completely through. They blend wonderfully through. And you know, it's interesting, of course, when you open the top, how it stops the process of cooking. So remember that. And let's get our things back in there and covered really quickly. Oh, this smells divine. There we go. And it will come back up to temperature. And if you want to get it really simmering, a high simmer to keep it going. So now I'm going to mix up this vegetable mix so I can spread the seasoning out, the salt and the pepper, and just leave that. And actually, another way to do the vegetables, let's get back over here. Oops. Hello again. Tossing these little goodies in here. And one thing we can do with these, if you don't want to wait for them to cook in the mixture that we have here in the poaching mixture, what we can do is take these and get a skillet. And what I'm going to do is take this and put it on the large burner in the back. So I'm going to move that in just a minute, but I'm going to get out a skillet with high sides. A lovely pan that has high sides. You can see that because I want to be able to toss these things in here. I'm going to take my olive oil as I wait for this burner to heat up and sprinkle some olive oil in there or spread it out. That's about a tablespoon. And here's where I'm going to add my Italian blend to give the Brussels sprouts and the leeks and the celery a little bit different flavor. I'm going to put it right into the oil so that once I put the vegetables in, the oil is seasoned and they'll be able to start cooking with all the seasonings there, and then we'll turn them over and coat them. I'm going to take this, and actually I'm going to use 2 hands because it's heavy, and put it over on this side. And make sure when you have as large a pot as this, because a lot of times we don't have a burner that will cover the whole bottom of the pan, make sure it's centrally located so that it can distribute the heat evenly while it's cooking. And this one, of course, is already hot, so our oil is going to come up really quickly. And I'm going to let that start to simmer a wee bit. And I've got my, there we go. We'll just take that. Don't need any more wine in there. There's plenty of juice in there. I'm going to make sure I get all my Brussels sprouts and leeks and celery coated pretty evenly. And take my Italian blend. Here we go. We're just starting to simmer. I had to turn it up a little bit to get it started again. And in the meantime, I'd just like to speak to you about some of the procedures and some of the things about chicken that people don't really know all the time. And whether it's soup or whether you roast, chicken is so versatile that it's one of the wonderful things that, as I say, I believe it's the most used meat around the world. And it can be fixed in so many ways. You can broil it, you can boil it, or poach it, as we have. You can fry it, you can roast it. I mean, it's just amazing the versatility of the organic chicken. And I suggest organic chickens because then you know that it hasn't been fed any kind of antibiotics or anything that you will ingest from it too. Now, packaged either fresh or frozen, it's really a good buy. And it's one of the best staples in the grocery store. So let's see. Around the world, chicken is a good source of protein, of course. It's about, in an average chicken breast, about 54 grams of protein. So it gives you that. There's no carbohydrates, as in 0, and about 6 grams of fat. Now, here's an interesting thing about chicken, which I actually learned many years ago from my son, who is also an interesting gourmet chef. The moving parts of the chicken, as in the wings and the legs, have tons of collagen. And this is one of the reasons that chicken soup has been referred to as Jewish penicillin. I know that my grandmother, when I was a little kid, we used to go to the kosher butcher and she would buy the chicken, including the feet. And the chicken feet, of course, because the chicken's always moving and it's walking on them, the chicken feet contain tons of collagen. And collagen is something that we need, and the only way to really get the benefit of it is to ingest it. So cooking your wings, cooking your thighs, cooking your chicken feet, if you can get them. Of course, make sure you clean them thoroughly before you put them into a soup or something. I use them exclusively for soups. But this adds that collagen and the elastin to your cooking. so that it actually helps to help you get your skin in better shape. It's a very necessary part of your skin. And as a nutritionist, it also is an easy way to get your collagen. The bones, of course, the bones, tendons, nails, skin, and hair are all helped. Our bones, tendons, skin, and hair are all helped with collagen. And it also helps to line your guts in both animals and human animals as well. It's a very necessary part of keeping your skin soft, and it makes up about 30% of the proteins in our bodies. So we need to ingest it, as I say, for it to really work. So remember the moving parts of the bird, as in the legs and the thighs. Whoops, I got caught up in the collagen, and I think we have over toasted the olive oil. Yep. So we'll just eliminate that and start over. Sometimes that happens. So we'll just clean that out. That's what happens when I start talking about nutrition. Things just go. Okay, we'll turn it down a wee bit. And now we're going to turn down the other burner because it is boiling and I want it to simmer. Remember that. We're simmering this. When you're poaching, simmering is far better than boiling. Okay, there's our olive oil. And we'll put in our Italian blend. And now it's quite hot. So what I'm going to do, it will sizzle when I put the vegetables in, but I'm going to turn it down again to about medium-low. Now, the veggies are going to cook faster than the chicken, but I did want to show you how we do this. So I'm going to take my veggies, and we'll go over there and add them to the pot, or pan, as it were. I'm sure you can hear that. So we do want these to go face down. I'm going to see if I can get all the Brussels sprouts to turn over face down. It's a challenge. There we go. Even those of us who are chefs and cook a lot have some challenges with some of the foods. So I just want you to know that. There we go. And of course, I turn this down to low. And we're going to let that sizzle for a while. There we go. Now, if you're doing green beans, of course, you could just chop them up and add them to the brew that's over here. That's really simmering a little too high, so I turned it down again. Keep an eye on it, because you don't want it to boil. It's not necessary for it to boil. And boiling would tend to really dissipate the whole thing. So we're going to keep it at poaching. And I'm putting these on low. And the fun part about this is if you add the vegetables to the stew or the poaching, you'll have like a chicken stew. If you do the vegetables separately, then you can serve them separately so everybody can choose what they want to do and how much of the veggies they want. Now when you're cooking the chicken, please keep in mind the chicken does need to be cooked thoroughly. Every once in a while, if I'm eating out, which I do occasionally, I've gotten chicken that's a little bit on the pink and red side, and if it's not quite cooked well enough, it can produce some digestive problems. So make sure that your chicken is thoroughly cooked, especially in a restaurant. By the way, collagen from chicken is also used to treat joint pain, that's associated with many types of arthritis, and it's used to help people heal from surgery. And collagen is considered important in foods that help keep us young because it does affect the skin and help prevent wrinkles. So when making the soup or your broth from chicken, excuse me, a little bit of the heat is going up there. We're going to keep those Brussels sprouts, an eye on the Brussels sprouts now. When you're making soup or broth from chicken, the bones are important, and that's one of the reasons that I left the bones in there, because eventually I will take the bones from the chicken, the poached chicken, and put them all in the soup. And in other words, what I'm doing is using the whole chicken. And I'm definitely a believer in not wasting any part of good food. So bone broth is another thing which you can use, which you can make from the chicken bone yourself, especially if you have a pressure cooker. If you don't have a pressure cooker that you can use and you know how to use it well, because it will certainly shorten the cooking time, you can take the bones and put them on low simmer or in a crock pot or a slow cooker overnight, so that the bones get to the point where you can actually almost mash them with your fingers. And you want to take the bone marrow and the bones as much as you can, and to create your bone broth, because then you're really getting all the nourishment, the vitamins, minerals, and everything that's in the bone. And as my grandmother used to say, eat your soup, it'll make you feel better. So whether you're making soup, whether you're roasting, baking, sauteing, or poaching the chicken, it's one of the best bargains that you can purchase. Right now, you can usually buy chickens on sale. And if they're frozen organic chickens, that's a great way to buy them. When you're defrosting, please try to defrost in your refrigerator. Of course, put them in a pan so that all the drippings, the condensation from the defrosting is contained. And then use your chicken any way you want. As we're doing today, that's just one way. I'm going to toss these. All right. Actually, what I'm going to do is add a little bit more garlic to these, because I happen to like that. And one of the things I discovered, and of course most of you will probably discover the same, when a vegetable is fresh and in season, that's the best time to eat it. That's the best time to buy it. And if you're going to can them or freeze them, buy them when they're at the peak of their ripeness, because that way you get the flavor. And one of the things that I really promote is if you're going to use a vegetable that's canned, please choose wisely, as most of them are canned at the peak of their ripeness. And I really favor using tomatoes as my favorite canned vegetable. They are probably the most easily canned, and to retain their flavors, they're really the best things to use for canning. Unless you're a professional at that, which I am not. I like to cook. I don't particularly like to can. But when I've frozen vegetables, I've frozen them at the peak of their ripeness. So that's just another, a little cooking hint. And of course, if you have the leftover bones from your chicken, whatever way you're making it, and you're not ready to make your soup yet, take them and put them in a plastic bag that's sealed, and make sure that they are sealed, and then freeze them until you're ready to use them. And so we will have the chicken ready shortly. And of course, I just want you to see the Brussels sprouts. And the way that you can reach me, I want to let you know that you can reach me at my website. It's rickykitchen.net. Just a minute. Yeah. Okay. It's rickykitchen.net. RICKI@rickiskitchen.net or Ricki@rickiskitchen.net, and it's RICKI. And it's for Ricki's Kitchen, it's RICKISKITCHEN.net. And you can also look for my book on Amazon. And as I said, yes, you can eat well and eat right. And we also have a few other goodies there. Actually, for the holidays, there's some wonderful recipes in here as far as using certain kinds of spices and what we're used to on the holidays, like the cinnamon and cloves and so forth. And I also have a wonderful apron. You'll excuse me for 2 seconds. That makes a great gift for your favorite chef. It's large enough to cover and keep you clean, and it does say take whisk, which is my favorite tool in the kitchen. So with that, you'll also find a cup, a mug, and a travel cup, as well as a lovely little notebook that's a spiral. And by the way, you have room for your notes in here. So you can reach me at rickiskitchen.net. And if you want to text, the number is 970-618-7607. And please put pitch or Ricki's Pitch in your text so I know where it came from. And so thank you so much for being with us today on United Kitchens on USA Global TV. And have an absolutely healthy, wonderful weekend. And we'll see you again next Friday.